So, some tragic news to start off with. There was a tornado that hit a local town in Mississippi. Um, when it rains, it pours. Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the United States, but on top of that, they just got hit by a bad tornado. So, we're going to look at one of the articles here, and then we'll get to a video really quick to talk about it. So it says there's nothing left. Deep South tornadoes kill 26. This is tough. So in Rolling Fork, Mississippi, rescuers raced Saturday to search for survivors and help hundreds of people left homeless after a powerful tornado cut through a devastating path through Mississippi, killing at least 25 people, injuring dozens, and flattening entire blocks as it carved a path of destruction for more than an hour. One person was killed in Alabama. The tornado devastated the swath of Mississippi Delta town of Rolling Fork, reducing homes to piles of rubble, flipping cars on their sides, and toppling the town's water tower. Residents hunkered down in bathtubs and hallways during Friday night's storm and later broke into a John Deere store that they converted into a triage center for the wounded. There is nothing left, said Wonder Bolden, holding her granddaughter, Journey, while standing outside the remnants of her mother's now leveled mobile home in Rolling Fork. There's just debris that's running through and through, just nothing. Based on early data, the tornado received a primary EF4 rating. That is the second highest rating you can have, by the way. The National Weather Service in Jackson said late Saturday in a tweet, an EF4 tornado has a top wind gusts of 166 miles per hour and 200 miles per hour, according to the service. The Jackson office cautioned it was still gathering information on the tornado. Mississippi Emergency Management Agency announced late Saturday afternoon in a tweet that the death toll had risen to 25 and that dozens of people were injured. 4 people previously reported missing have been found. Other parts of Deep South were digging out from damage caused by other suspected twisters. 1 man died in Morgan County, Alabama, the Sheriff's Department said in a tweet. Throughout Saturday, survivors walked around dazed and in shock as they broke through debris and fallen trees with chainsaws searching for survivors. Power lines were pinned under decade-old oaks, their roots torn from the ground. So, of course, the Mississippi Governor Reeves is going to be declaring a state of emergency, which allows for federal assistance. And so this is what happened. When tragedies like this strike, it just, a lot of times we'll hear about these things now these days, and we don't really focus too much on it anymore. But I live in Florida, where we're under a constant barrage of hurricanes, which can give birth to tornadoes too. And a lot of us, in the independent media space, and those especially of us in Revolutionary Blackout Network, we talk about economic issues. The thing is that these natural disasters also tie into economic issues. How many of these people in Rolling Fork, they don't have a bunch of money in savings just in case. There's no such thing if there is such thing as tornado insurance, do any of them have it? And even if they do have it, is it really going to work? Because a lot of these insurance companies don't really care. They just want to make money. They don't really want to pay out. And some people may not be able to afford it if hurricane insurance exists. What if there was, what about their housing? I mean, they have housing insurance, but I don't know if that affects it. But what about being displaced? What about burial? Some people may have life insurance, but not everybody has life insurance. Nope, not everybody can afford it. What about, people having to take off of work? Take one day off and it's over. Many people in this country cannot take off one day of work. That's how economically displaced we are. So when we see stories like this, I think it's important for us to reflect on, it's not just within our daily lives that is hard, that is arduous to deal with, to survive. Imagine when tragedies like this strike, and the fact that it is also exacerbated by climate change. Just imagine. Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the United States. Mississippi also has a low economic base. So I'm going to show you guys that. By the way, the minimum wage in Mississippi is $7.25 an hour. That's the minimum wage. Here's how the Census Bureau out of Rolling Fork. Let me make sure. Out of income and earnings is $38,558 is the median household income in Rolling Fork City, Mississippi. That's the median income out of the entire country. Which means people are barely surviving. And I think it's important to keep into context, because here at Revolutionary Blackout Network, we are an all-black network, is to focus on the racial disparity as well. So in this town, it has 1,402 black people. 423 white people. So over 80% of the entire town is black. So on top of income disparity, on top of the climate crisis, on top of all that, there's also racial disparities that they have to deal with as a majority black town. So this is one of the reasons why we talk about what we talk about. Because a town like this going through what it's going through, even though it's a small town, what are they going to do? A majority of Americans do not have enough money for a $400 emergency. You guys know the figures. Most of them don't. And so when we talk about changing our system, we mean to a system that favors people instead of profit. Imagine having storehouses full of building supplies and materials that are kept there publicly, just in case of emergency. And when these emergencies happen, they go into that storage for the concrete, the wood, the pipe fixtures. They go in there for the electrical. They have all these things stored up. They can store it underground for all I care. And then when somebody loses a few houses, they come in and they rebuild. They rebuild whatever they can. And then, you can have many different communities with these different things, and they all come in and converge on one area to rebuild. But imagine if we had that. But we don't. What about healthcare? We just went through a drastic pandemic that has took a bat to the knees of this world, especially this country, especially because of the mishandling of it. And now you have people who have to deal with this now. What are they to do? Bootstrap that. Bootstrap it. Well, how are they going to do that? Let me go to the video. There's a couple. First, I'm going to show you guys the drone footage video, and then we're going to go to a more on the ground video talking about, everything that has taken place. So let me make sure this is enlarged so it looks good. All right. All right. So this is in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. So as you guys can see, this town is decimated. Imagine if this was your town. Imagine you get into the tub, or you get into the hallway or into the basement, and you hide out for an hour. It sounds like a freight train coming through your house. Let's say you just got home from work, or you just got home from school, and you're about to eat, or you're on the phone with a loved one, and they say, take cover now. Guess what? You have to stop what you're doing, go and take cover. And guess what? After about an hour, you come out and you see this. You see all this. Nothing. Nothing recognizable. And then people will say, oh, well, federal aid will come in. Yeah, but is it really going to make everybody whole again? And by whole, I mean get their houses back. And if they don't own their own home, then where are they going to? They're permanently displaced. But on top of all that, are they going to get their automobiles back? People say, oh, they have auto insurance, but are they going to be able to get the same value that they got back? Remember, cars depreciate in value. Are they going to have adequate health care? Are they going to do like what they did for Libby, Montana, and in Section 1881A of the Social Security Act, they're going to give them Medicare for all? Are they going to do that? Because there's a lot of people who were hurt, a lot of people who were harmed. What about the burial for the loved ones? The 26 people that died. Are they going to have anything? You see, here's my problem. People are going to defend, or they're going to depend on the kindness of others, which I do appreciate the kindness of others, right? That is very important. But in the system that we have, not in the system that we have, I should rephrase that. In the society that we have in these modern times, we should not have to depend on the kindness of others in order for us to survive or even to thrive. That should not be. We should not have to crowdfund. We should not have to depend on people to jump in their trucks, jump in their cars to come down and help. In fact, it should be a public government apparatus to make everybody whole, as if before the tornado ever happened. That's how it should be. And it should not be for profit. It should not be privatized. And yet, who's going to end up making more money off of this? The insurance companies are going to make money off of this. Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Aetna, United, Humana, they're going to make money off of this. Geico is going to make money off of this. Forget that 15%. Geico is going to make a killing off of this, right? If we had an egalitarian system, would they be able to make themselves whole again? Yeah. Because we would have a system that makes sure that we are prepared for these things. You see, in a more equitable, equal, egalitarian system, it's not looking at things through a rose-colored lens as if tragedies won't strike, like natural disasters won't strike. Earthquakes will still happen. Hurricanes will still happen. Tornadoes will still happen, right? People will still get struck by lightning. Things like this will happen. But the recovery won't be reduced because of a system that focuses on greed. I think this is important. But when we talk about things like this, people didn't realize that when Superstorm Sandy came in and ravaged New York that it would happen to them. Oh, but it happened. They're looking at us like Florida, like, well, look at you guys. Look what happened to Florida. When natural disaster strikes, the tragedy is exacerbated by the capitalist system. Because capitalism is a system that looks for profit wherever it can, including and especially during tragic events. Because you are more desperate in tragic events than you are in normal events. I live in Florida. I know. Price gouging happens every single time we have a tornado or hurricane. Every single time it happens, people are selling things and striking up the prices as high as they possibly can just so that they can make an extra buck. That's the profit of greed. And you don't think that these corporate dictators aren't doing the same thing? How much did you pay for eggs this week? Milk? Fruit? Veggies? Hot Pockets. How much did you pay for it? Because the thing is that, look, you are literally being price gouged right now. People call it inflation, but it's price gouging. And let's not forget, these people just experienced a tragedy and in time where we're experiencing record inflation, price gouging in our country. And before I even look at Rockfin, I know Roger Meadows is going to come in and say, if we have public banks, then this could be mitigated because we would have the funds to be able to invest in infrastructure. I haven't even looked at Rockfin yet. I know that's what Roger Meadows will say. I hope I made him proud. But seriously, like, we need to have apparatuses like this.
Over 24 people have been killed and many more wounded after severe storms that spawned at least one violent tornado ripped across Mississippi late on Friday, according to the state's emergency management agency on Saturday. It left a trail of damage more than 100 miles long and hundreds without shelter. Though 4 people earlier reported missing have been located. Piles of twisted metal can be seen here in the western Mississippi town of Rolling Fork, which was hardest hit. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves on Saturday issued a state of emergency in the affected areas. On Twitter, Reeves said, "The scale of the damage and loss is evident everywhere affected today: homes, businesses, entire communities." President Joe Biden described the images from Mississippi as heartbreaking. He said in a statement that he had spoken with Reeves and offered his condolences as well as full federal support for the recovery. while the White House said Federal Emergency Management Agency Director Deanne Criswell will travel to Mississippi on Sunday to join those already on the ground. At least 24 reports of tornadoes were issued to the National Weather Service on Friday night and into Saturday morning by storm chasers and observers. The reports stretch from the western edge of Mississippi north through the center of the state and into Alabama.
So, one of the things that I also want to address, and I hear this a lot from people who typically are liberal and vote Democrat, is they will say, well, if you guys want more help, then you guys should have voted better. That is anti-worker. That is heartless. And that is a cruel statement. That's an inhumane statement, because you're basically saying that their plight that they've just experienced is a result of a system that really does not listen to their voice anyway. We all joke about how we do not live in a democracy. I'm begging to argue that we really don't live in that much of a democracy. So how are you going to blame something on somebody that they really didn't have that much of a choice in? Also, by the way, even if they made a bad choice, that does not mean that they deserve to suffer. Remember, most of the people in this country are brainwashed in some way or another, either by one side or the other of the uniparty. So, how am I going to punish someone for something that they were brainwashed into believing? That's like a child running around with a cup full of juice, and they're just now experiencing walking around a cup without a lid on it. They didn't know better. People think that they know better. People assume. But the thing is that when you're being taught by our system one way, when in reality, it's not the way that they say it is. No, it's not. We have to let our humanity be the overarching function that we display towards other people in order for them to, number one, get to a point where they can be helped. Two, where they can actually learn instead of learning through punishment. It's learning through help. Gonna go to the chat really quick. Thank you so much for the super chat. Lulu Loveberry says, thank you for all you do, for all your advocacy. It is appreciated. Thank you. Thank you so very much. That means a lot. I try. I got a lot to work on, though. Boy, do I have a lot to work on. But I'm doing the best I can. YepX says there are just so many people and causes that need mutual aid help. People just can't afford to help everyone. That's true. It's impossible, really. We have to pick and choose what we can help under capitalism. Yes. The ultimate way to help everyone is to change the system. Changing the system is the ultimate way, is the ultimate version of mutual aid. So that we can have a more central planning system, so that whenever things like this happen, it's from a government apparatus. Okay, people lost their home, they're going to get with their home back. They're either going to get the same what they had before or better. I'm a believer in that. So let's say you were living in a house and it needs some repairs, kind of run down, but it's all you had. And then a tornado comes, hits, destroys your home. We're going to build you a brand new house. You're not going to have what you had before. You're going to have better. Why? Because you are worthy of it. You're worthy of it. Brian says, so if we're used to unnatural disasters and police killings, why will we not be immune from natural disasters? Somebody said we're used to unnatural disasters. Who said that? We're not immune to them. We'll never be immune to them. We can build contingencies and safeguards, but this goes into building housing that's more resilient against natural disasters. But if you do that, then that means that a lot of these housing companies that build houses and a lot of these banks and a lot of these other companies, they won't be happy, because then if you build something to last, then that means you're not going to be building that much more, which means you're not going to make that much profit. Auto companies hate public transit. They hate, especially the idea of mass public transit. They hate it. Why? Less profit. Even the homeowners insurance companies, they would hate this, because if your house is more resilient against things like this, let's say fires, floods, wind gusts, tornadoes, hurricanes, let's say your house is more resilient against that. Guess what? They're not going to like that either. Because, and especially if you're guaranteed housing, because if you're guaranteed housing, and let's say your house is destroyed, we have a government apparatus, then your house gets rebuilt. Insurance for what? Insurance is just a middleman. Housing should be guaranteed. I said it on, with Lee Kemp last week. You are worthy of housing. I'm not even using the word deserve anymore. You want to know why I'm not using that word anymore? Because deserve means that you have to do some action in order to deserve something. Technically. Worthy, I say, is just by virtue of being a human being and living on this planet, you deserve housing. So that's why I use the word worthy. So we'll never be immune from them, but we can actually build contingencies and have things in place so that the disasters are mitigated or minimalized at the very least, so that less lives are lost, less property is damaged, and it also saves us money. Because if you have a home that's able to withstand 150 mile per hour winds, then if in case something like this happens, guess what? Your house is safe, which means you won't have to spend any money to get it repaired or get a new one. Jessica says, what about those that vote and nothing changes? That's why I hate when they say it. I'm going to give you the last word on that one. SG says, oh, okay. Explaining that. Sabby's in the chat. I didn't see her. I was so busy talking. Oh, hey, Sabs. Sabs in the chat. That tornado category is not common. That's a powerful storm. Yeah. EF4, there's 5 of them. EF1 to EF5. And EF4 is the second highest that you can get. Creative Experiment says, in fact, the only reason houses are built to higher standards are because insurance companies are requiring it now, not because it's the right thing to do. Remember what happened? Like, okay, so I had on Alex from United for East Palestine yesterday, and we were talking about Norfolk Southern. And one of the things I was explaining is that Norfolk Southern, the reason why these derailments happen is because companies like Norfolk Southern do not want to invest in actual safety measures because it costs more money. Investing in actual safer products and safety measures within housing also costs more money. And so if they want to make more profit, then that means that they have to build the houses cheaper. So they're willing to do the bare minimum as possible in order to build these houses. And the only thing that is the reason why yours isn't going up in smoke right now is because of regulations by the government that was set in place to make sure that that doesn't happen. But even still, they're still going to use the cheapest way possible because it's all about profit. And so, guess what? In a system that's for profit, that means your house isn't going to be built in the most optimal way possible to withstand things like this. Because ultimately, that means that if it's not, and if it's destroyed, then who has to come back and ask for more supplies for the house? When the electrical goes down, who do you have to go to? When your plumbing goes down, who do you have to go to? When you have to replace sheetrock, who do you have to go to? You have to go to all these places and either do repairs or you have to rebuild it fully. And then who do you get financing from? More financing from the banks. That's how it works. Building something that lasts, that's a lot more durable, it's not profitable.